welcome back to Politricks Watch. This is Sir P. Now, today, I'm going to give you an interview I had with an insider in the scamming game. Right? We're talking about the modern version of scamming. Some of you remember my old video, right? Where a scammer, a mobile scammer, basically explained to me how the game works. I get to understand that those tactics are now outdated because as the laws change and them have anti-scam task force and all these things, the scammers have now stepped them thing up another level where those old methods, right, only the rookies use them old methods there and them get catch. Today I'm going to play an interview, right, and you're going to hear the modern way how them do things. Obviously, this information might be new to me and most of you. The people in the scamming game are well familiar with these tactics. So they already have the knowledge. But if you also have the knowledge, then you are better able to protect yourself and your loved ones. So I'm not going to drag this on much further. Right, I basically ask the individual to first tell me about how the modern day lead sheet thing work, right, and how they acquire the information about the individuals that I'm talking, right, because that's always baffled me because we know say, right, them not just pick people randomly, right. So listen up, right. I'm going to cut in every now and then and just give my opinion on various parts. I'm gonna make you just listening, alright, check this out. Oh, and by the way, you know how to protect my sources, so the person's voice is distorted, right, heavily edited, but as long as they can hear them I say, that's all that matters. So check this out.
A lead sheet is created when a person within a certain agency which deals with information and is access to an abundance of information within a database goes rogue, and this is normally for money. Information can be bought almost anywhere where a person work or is exposed to information within whether on the internet or it is that they work at a call center. Now I'm going to show you the different ways of how someone can gather information and to create a lead sheet. A lead sheet is basically a list of persons who are vulnerable to scams. They aren't random persons who are just gathered from around the world or wherever, but rather persons who are, number one, elderly, has money or is known to have money, someone who is just a suspect of certain disabilities and can be seen to be taken advantage of, or just many aspects out there. In getting a lead sheet, it is required that the source, which is at the top of the chain, the source is basically the person who is going to be putting together that lead sheet and be selling it to you. Now, in order to be a top seller, your lead sheet has to be credible. Credibility within a lead sheet is a thing like this. Within a scamming circle, there is a talk of whose source is better than whose. Now, credibility within a lead sheet is basically letting someone know that whichever person you call on that lead sheet is a sure thing that they have money based on the research that the source has done to know about this person. So basically what happens, if it's that you're getting your leads from a person who got their source is in a call center, they would then be speaking to the person. They will know the person's age, how they sound, if it's a person who is passive or not, or whatsoever. And most likely the persons who work in call centers, whether in Jamaica, India, Trinidad, or whichever across the world, who decides to go rogue and put together a list of information of persons, which normally takes months, sometimes weeks, or if that person is a productive source, sometimes you have your lead sheets done in probably days.
Boom. You hear that? The source, the person who are gather the data, right, who are put together the lead sheet, they might not even be Jamaicans. Can be from Trinidad, India, anywhere in the world. So that means they have people who are getting these jobs, as a say in a call center and in place, any place where you interact with enough people and you might talk to people about them finances or whatever, or about this account and that account or whatever. And man, they get the intelligence and put together a lead sheet. And their intention is to then sell it back to the scammers. So now you see one of the reasons why scamming thing can't really mash up, even though they might lock up the individual scammers, because the source is still there. And as long as their sources willing to gather that intel, then you just need the scammers them who are in the circles to tap into the source. Oh, and these circles, and anybody can get into them. So you think say, tomorrow morning go call the man and say, yo, me I coming down a circle, you know, so save one seat for me. And I saw it work. And I saw it work at all. Say, man, if you go in and ask man about, yo, you know, no source, you know, man, go to think say a police and killer. Right? So, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Listen up for the rest. Now, you know, people always say, but how come people just get called and then they enter a game and them agree with man for send money? That don't make no sense. Surely them will learn by now because they don't enter a game. Well, listen up.
No, the most popular lead sheets that are in the scamming circle, which is Trinidad or Jamaica at most, is the Publishers Clearinghouse Sweepstakes. Now, this is actually an entity that persons overseas submit applications with certain information on it to enter in a raffle to win millions or prizes.
Boom. So now we can't stop the, how come them send money and they never enter the game and they never enter the prize? They not no sense, they not no sense, they not no sense. Clearly people can't be that stupid. People can, now you know, and you can Google it for yourself, Publishing Clearinghouse, legit site, right, big site, where people actually do enter for win prizes and games. But then guess what? Insider on that, you know what? Keep listening.
Now, when persons take this information who work within the Publishers Clearinghouse Sweepstakes offices or who's just an agent, they normally put together this information on the best candidates to be scammed. Now, when these information are put together, the more information is the more money that you'll be spending to get a lead sheet. So a normal lead sheet, a primary lead sheet, has names, address, phone numbers on it. Now, if it's that the more information you want, for example, if you want a lead sheet with all the primary information as well as a social security number, banking information, or age, or just for example, or which bank they bank with, comes with the more money you'll be spending to buy that lead sheet. Now, in buying that lead sheet, you have to be exposed to a source, as I mentioned before. If that person who is being bragged as the best source is the person who normally has the best lead sheets. Now, to be bragged and known as a person with the best lead sheets, is that your information that you put together to be entered on that lead sheet has to be accurate at all times. Developing customer relationship, that is basically persons who you're selling your lead sheets to, will always bring other customers to you. So scammers normally go to where they know that they are getting the best lead sheets from. You don't have to do anything at all to end up on these lead sheets. From your vulnerable to be scammed, for example, after looking at profiles of these persons, they can determine what age they are, where they live, for example, their monthly income or their previous jobs can be determined if they are a perfect candidate to be a client. Now, clients are basically persons who are being called and are what we call scammed. They are the persons who pay out money to these scammers. Now, in other words, scammers would then call clients. So for this instance, we're saying that they got their sheets from the Publishers Clearinghouse. They would call these clients stating that they are from whichever entity at most times that they get these lead sheets from. But the most popular place that these scammers go to get their lead sheets is a source which always ends up getting them from the Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes. Now, for example, the source is someone who is so secretive that sometimes you don't know if you're dealing with a male or a female. What happens is that when you get a link to the source, it's not someone that you DM, it's not someone that you text an iMessage, it's not someone that you end up on a phone call with. What happens is that you get a primary email. Now, after getting the primary email, what happens is that after you text that source willing to buy a lead sheet, they then send you a secondary email built specifically for you and the source.
You hear that? You know what that mean? That mean the scammer can't sink the source. The source knows that when police hold on upon the scammer, he will go talk. But when you talk on somebody with him, know who. That means that as it stands, police can only lock up the scammers. The source will always be there for new scammers. But as I say, based on me here, simple Simon, if you want to go and go ask man for source, you might end up with a duff cut. Make you listen the rest.
Now, after the source gets to know your wants, he then handpicks these clients for you. Now, the more money you're willing to spend is how credible this lead sheet will be. The more information you want on these lead sheets is the more money you're willing to spend on these lead sheets. Now, after calling these persons, so in this instance, you're calling from the Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes, you then call them. Now, scammers actually practice English. Whichever language they are calling to the different countries, they have to understand the language and they practice this language. Scammers normally tend to bend their vocals, whether they want to be speaking as male or female, it is possible. So now they call these persons. Hi, my name is Jane Doe. I'm calling from the Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes. May I speak with Mary, please? Mary would then say, yes, this is Mary. Alright, Mary. Now I'm calling from the Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes. Please can you verify that your address is 123 Adams Apple Road?
See that? Wanna see that? See, this is why I wanted to speak to somebody, right, who know the game. Because when I talk to Jamaican, average Jamaican in the streets, all the areas, them fool, them a send money to give people and them never enter nothing. Well, clearly enough of the people them did enter. And one time them call, The scammer them a call them back and I tell them address and them phone number and all these things. And them say, well, the only way you have that information is if this is legit because of that I'm putting on the system. Right? And Publishers Clearinghouse is a big legitimate company. It's like you go up on any website, go play a game, and then you say you win, and them call you back and I tell you say, so people are falling for it because it makes sense. Because I used to always think to myself, how foolish can people be? Everybody tell me say them people doesn't have sense. How them people don't have sense? They are entering games, and not only that, you hear say other things like age and them things they factor into it. Because you know the older you get, you might not be as sharp and you might be more, you know. Go and listen.
Now, this is the thing. Saying information to clients about them always open their eyes. Now, as I mentioned before, if you're getting your lead sheet from a publisher's clearinghouse sweepstakes source, they are expecting a call from them because the only way their information ends up at their business is that they actually have to put it on a paper or do something that their information ends up in a database within that company. So it's not just any random picked persons. They actually either sign up or somehow their information is end up in their database and someone goes rogue and decides to sell it.
See, you can act all woke and say them thing I can't fall for me, but imagine calling your favorite bank, calling your favorite utilities company, right, calling your favorite phone company, right, and I discuss matters with them, and the person on the next line have your information, right, because everybody have put information in the system, right, and then staff go rogue, and next thing you know, you're stressed out, you turn grey. See, the public need to educate themselves on this because me say, man who want go scam and man who have scamming links have the knowledge, but you don't have the knowledge. So next time you laugh off a scamming victim, just make sure so when you go into the bank and the person you talk to, make sure so them no rogue. Because then you go see who laugh. Listen to the rest.
Now, when the scammers call these clients, they have different tactics that they use to get money from these clients. Now, the first thing that a scammer has to do is build a relationship with their clients. Sometimes it takes a month. Sometimes it takes two months. Sometimes it takes 3 months in order to develop a relationship with that client. Sometimes a year. But depending on how much money that client has is the perseverance a scammer uses to pressure that client to build a relationship with them, build a trust with them so they can get that person's money. Now, the most common way that persons normally know is that after calling them, telling them that they have won a such amount of money, have to pay a such amount of fees. That is one way that a scammer can get money from their client, as well as that with systems that are now in place, things get much more technical. Scammers are now able to not charge their clients, however, get information from their clients. Now, getting information from their clients is somewhat the easiest. It's not done at once. Sometimes it takes a month, sometimes it takes 2 months, sometimes it takes 3 months. Now, every single call a scammer would then use to get information from that client. Now, the first time they call, they would say, alright, verify your address with me. Basic information that they have in front of them to make it look as if they are calling from a legitimate business. Now, after getting such information from clients, how do a scammer get money from its clients? Now, as I mentioned, the first thing, what someone can do is that they can get money from them by sending them to a bank after telling them that, hey, in order to get this amount of money, you have to meet this amount of payment. That is one. too.
Okay, the second one I have to leave it out. I take cut it out because it's a complete game changer, and it can be used not just for scamming but for other things. And I didn't even know that. I didn't know that. This one completely blew my mind, and because it can be used for other things, I cut it out. Right. I've been cutting out various parts of the interview. The part that are complete game changers, because enough of this, me know you might read to the man on a corner and him tell you some of them things, right? Or if you have links or this and that. But the parts them were a complete, like, just mind blowing, and with that knowledge, it can be used for other things outside of scamming. We just cut out them part there, right? Because I want to keep it strictly to the scamming. And some of this information will be useful to any criminal, right? Any criminal whatsoever will try move money from one point to the next. Some of us move out them party, right? So listen up to the rest.
So that is one thing, how technology is increased and used nowadays in scamming. You have this thing that you can use that is called a merchant. Now, how a merchant works is that after developing a relationship with a client, after developing trust with them, you can actually manipulate them and send them to the banks to develop business accounts in their name and giving you access to it. Now, a skill scammer is basically someone that uses their clients as a puppet. They can use them to even push them to create more scams, as well as recruit other persons to be scammed as well. Now, this is all a puppet game. How you can get in an elderly person's head. Sometimes younger persons, but the most common clients are elderly persons. Now, the elderly persons that are targeted is persons that normally has money. Depending on the skill that you inherit as a scammer, then it all determines on how skilled you are, how you can get into person's head. So do not feel as if scammers aren't smart. They are one of the smartest persons you will ever meet on this earth. They know how to get into person's head and manipulate them.
Now, just by hearing about some of the strategies, right, and the tactics that they're using, can tell that the people who are at the top of the scamming game, when it comes on, the people who actually build the ideas and build the countermeasures, these people are not LIQs. I know we're more familiar with the typical 87 scammer in the streets, right? The scammer who you might think to yourself then, he won't last long, right? Walk the same, talk the same, dress the same, the same bleaching cream, everything. That scammer is at the bottom of the food chain. The people who come up with the ideas, those people, they are not LIQs. They're actually sharp minds who have gone rogue for money. Because when you really hear some of the things that they come up with, forget around, not just Jamaican police, but American police and UK police and all these people, some of the countermeasures them use, you can tell these people are not LIQs. Them just gone rogue. Them just got rogue because they're tempted by the amount of money what them can make. Right? And them are made the real money. Not the scammers them are we familiar with in the streets where you see a driver, Oxy or a Beamer or them sitting there. Anyway, keep listening.
Now, persons have different techniques in how they scam their clients. The most common technique is telling them that, hey, you have this amount of money to be collected, but you have to pay this amount of taxes. Which, for example, let's say you tell them that they have won $2.5 million. Now, when you tell them that, and you tell them also that they have to pay this amount of taxes, that the IRS need their taxes before any value above $1 million can be received. The IRS has to get their taxes before any amount of money that can be released from their bank. Now, most times scammers are actually persons who research about different types of systems, different types of government, and how they work with the banking sector and money.
You see that? Once again, that is legit. That is true. If you win no kind of money in America, Uncle Sam forget fee check first. So when you say that to somebody, them eyebrow no raise because something actually goes so. So that shows that the top scammer them, the people them, the strategists them sit down and them study the laws, them study the rules and the regulations. So them can use it to drop it upon them victims. So we are starting to see the picture now. The more intelligent scammers come up with the ideas, right? Make the links with the sources and come up with the countermeasures and all them things there. So by the time we get past down to 87 scammer in the streets who we are see, right? Them are actually the smallest fish in the pond. So when the government running upon them, it come like nothing because them not even come up with the ideas in the first place. The people them with the brains and the strategies, them now get locked up. We now see them in the streets. We now see them in the Axie and the this and the that and the beam they can't account for. So all police do a draw with the LIQ 87 scammer them. The masterminds them. Well, keep listening.
So scammers are actually smart people. Now, when they in turns tell them that they normally go ahead and go with it and deposit their money. Now, the psychological twist that scammers also use is that after sending their money, after 2 days, you can actually call them back, letting them know that, hey, we received your payment, but guess what? You send us 2,000, we're gonna send you 4,000. Now, what happened is that you're gonna use that 4,000 to get some supplies, get some drinks or whatsoever. If it's a case that they need medical supplies, you can give them that money. If it's that you're a scammer with money, when you do that, you actually play with their mind. How do we play with their mind? We're developing a level of trust with them.
Now, some of you remember from my first scammer interview video, right? I mentioned this as well. Again, you see, it's one of the most effective strategies. This is not just about scamming, you know. This is mind games in general. This is what? Cherry tricks. You see what them do? You send 2, we send back 4 and say, listen, buy your medication, man. Buy this and buy that, man. Take care of yourself. Buy your drinks. Cherry tricks. The biggest scam is about to come. Check it out.
Now, if they send us $6,000 or maybe $20,000 out of the leap of faith, we send them 2 times the money that they send us. It's a tactic called investment. When they realize that, wait, this person really sent me 2 times the money that I sent them, and we normally tell them, for example, alright, this is just for you to pay some bills or do whatever you need to do or whatsoever, they get so comfortable and trust us as if we are a part of their family, because we then develop tactics to let them know that, hey, we are here to get you your money. We need you to trust us. Alright? Now, for example, when we send them back money, we normally tell them, hey, you're gonna need to send us 50,000, which is normally 2 times the amount they send us and we send them back. So if they send us 20 first, we send them back 40. And then we ask them to send 50. That's a tactic that we use to flip the money using their trust. Now, if they complain, we let them know that this is just a fraction of what you're going to be actually getting, right? Now, let me explain something to you. We know that these persons has such amount of money after getting such information from them, because we are able to actually use automated systems which we can call their bank using their automated system and certain information that we have in front of us to check their accounts without going to the bank to ask them, hey, how much this person has their account or whatsoever, because at the end of the day we cannot do that. So we have to find different alternatives as to how to find out information about this client, if this client has money, or for example, we can use Google Maps to find out how big a client home is.
You hear that? You hear that? Them now if you come look for your yard, them can use the same technology. Them don't have to move a muscle. Listen to the rest.
So with experience, you can actually look at a house and say, well, this house looks like a 4-bedroom house or a 2-story house. This house may be worth $1.4 million or $146,000 in mortgage or whatsoever. We can then determine that there. So using that knowledge about a client determines how much money that person is either getting from like welfare or benefits, or if it's that they have pensions collecting, we can then know and then put into play or use different tactics that we can have clients either get loans on their houses, loans on their cars, or even going to banks and taking loans and using their house as a guarantee to pay back that loan. Scammers are normally heartless. When they tell clients to do that and they get their money, they vanish within thin air. How? That money isn't always transferred at once. They would then send the clients to different banks to open different accounts. So if it's that you have 5 banks within their state, they would then send them to that 5 banks to open different accounts. Now, open an account overseas is very easy. All the person needs to do is that they have a ID and probably a social security number. If they do not, but most times they do, it's very easy. What happens is that when we send them to get that account open, remember, we already have information for these people. So what do? We create online mobile banking for these persons that we can have access to. So with access to these accounts, we would then just wire transfer that money out of their account day by day, sometime weeks, sometime months, in order to have all that money transferred out to our desired location in which we decide to clear that money. Right? Now, another way we can actually make use of the COVID-19 grants that are normally being implemented now. Having information for a certain client, we can actually, if they have certain businesses or certain assets, we can request or sign up for a COVID-19 grant, either a small business grant, a veterans grant, or a senior citizens grant, or whichever. We can legit sign up for that. Now when we sign up for that, we will legit just put in a account number, writing number for the money that we want to go to, for example, a John Doe account instead of their account, but we're just using their information to get that money. There are many different ways in getting a client to trust you. We call them every single day to build a bond and a relationship with that client. We ask them as to how's their day was going. We call them randomly just to check up on them to see if they're okay or whatsoever. Now, the risk within operating with a client and calling a client is different. There are different tactics that a scammer can use in building a relationship with their client. The number one way of building a relationship with a client is that you can buy a phone, have someone overseas buy a phone and ship it to their address. Now, if it's a case that the lead sheet that you get from your source ends up that it's being duplicated and sold to a different source, a different buyer. My apologies. If it's that the lead sheet that you're getting is duplicated and sold to a different buyer, instead of running the risk of getting another scammer calling that client that you're speaking to, we would then order a phone, something small, something easier to handle for the client to use. Remember, these persons are normally senior citizens. What happens is that we get that phone to them. We then manipulate them, program them to tell them that, hey, you're only supposed to be using that phone to speak with us and only us. Do not answer any other call that you get elsewhere. Another tactic is that we can actually use Google Maps to see if it's like, for example, if this client has kids or if they have family members, we can use Google Maps to see if anyone is home with them. So we would can get information for them if they have kids, if they have like close family members that visits them. We can then know that, hey, this is what you're gonna do. You're gonna keep this call confidential between you and I. So do not tell your kids, don't tell your sister anything about it. When we do this, in our heads we know that, hey, we don't want anyone to know about this and then aware that this is a scam. How do we cover it up? We'll let them know that, hey, what happened is that sometimes your kids is going to tell you that this isn't real and you'll be losing out on a chance of winning $3.2 million. Or what the most common manipulation method is, telling them that sometimes their family members is at risk of getting their money, or sometimes poisoning them or trying to get rid of them, sending them to homes just to get their winning money or their winning package. Getting a client to believe that they have won a certain amount of money is sometimes very, very, very easy. Now, a method of verification is that we can actually send them a payslip. A payslip is basically something that we can type and develop and have someone overseas that we call a runner. A runner is basically someone who handles operations that we cannot handle depending on the country that you are in. So it is impossible for a scammer to act alone. A scammer always needs an organization. Always. Now, when that runner basically handles operations, they get paid. Most times the runner is the person who will go ahead and open accounts or carry out account works in getting money from point A to B. Gone are the days that persons go overseas to get money, collect money. A person can legit go overseas if they have a traveling visa, open abundant amount of accounts at whichever bank they decide that they want to open, and deposit as much money as they want on it, come down to the desired country that the scammer is at and give them the cards, or even visit the ATMs and draw the money within the currency that the scammer prefers it in. But most scammers, whichever country they're in, they always rather they're US. Now, a scammer knows the rates. Depending on the rates, knows how much money they're getting and such. And basically, that is the basics of scamming.
See it there? That's just part one. That's just the introduction to some of the tactics that them use for scamming. It's going to be a part 2, might even be a part 3. But part 2 is going to include questions such as, how much money do scammers actually make? Not just the regular scammers in the streets, so we know, but even the higher octane scammers, right? The top tier scammers, how much money them actually make. We're going to hear the real figures, no more guessing game. Part 2 also got questions such as, What role does your favorite legitimate businessman play in the scamming game? You're going to want to hear part 2. I did tell you that Sundays we're going to drop some bombshells. This video, just the start. Just the start. But I guess we're going to leave it for now. You probably want to share this video with your senior citizen friends. Right. You hear what I'm saying? The psychological side is a big part of it. Just calling people and asking them what them do and them thing there. Right? Have a major impact. Telling you. We don't hear nothing yet. Wait till you hear part 2. And don't message me and ask me when part 2 will come. Right? I'm dealing with an absolute ghost here. Right? It's when get back in touch and when can finish up. So whenever everything part 2 will drop. Patreon squad, big up on yourself. PIA, you don't know. More life. I did tell you that we have every type of people they can think of in the PIA. Right. You see, people can act all fake righteous as they want. But the only way you can bring down certain organizations is to get somebody who is in the organization to help you. You can't bring down clans without the help of people who are in a clans. You can't bring down the head court game unless you have somebody who in the game. So people can be as fake righteous and fake woke as they can, right? Or as they want to. But look at the justice system. When the justice system want to destroy something, or at least figure it out, them go to the people them who work in it. Them not come to me. Them they go to you. Right. We are going to tell him what's in our show, or what's in our documentary. You want the real info, you have to go into the system. That's why when they hear me drop information about clans or this gang or that gang, now I come from a local resident, a local bystander. People just sit up on a corner and hear something glance by. You need people who are in it. Anyway, Patreon squad, big up on yourself. PIA, you don't know. More life. Vulture squad, me know in a circle today. Vulture squad, there has to be some scraps. Some if you know. Listen out, if you say some relative, tell them something. Anyway, bless.